A Hero's Betrayal and Redemption. Chapter 1, Arrival in a New World. The vending machine hummed softly in the dimly lit college hallway. Mark Wilson, a lanky 21-year-old with disheveled brown hair, fumbled in his pocket for loose change. His hand brushed against an unfamiliar object, smooth, round, and slightly warm to the touch. Curious, he pulled it out, revealing a strange, glowing orb no larger than a marble. "What the?" Mark began, but his words were cut short as the orb pulsed with blinding light. The world around him blurred and twisted, the vending machine stretching into an incomprehensible shape before vanishing entirely. When the light faded, Mark found himself standing in the center of an ornate chamber. Towering stone walls adorned with intricate tapestries surrounded him. Before him stood a group of people dressed in flowing robes, their expressions a mix of awe and relief. An elderly man with a long white beard stepped forward, his eyes twinkling with barely contained excitement. At last, he proclaimed, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Our hero has arrived." Mark blinked, his mind reeling. "I'm sorry, what?" A young woman, no older than Mark himself, approached. Her golden hair cascaded over shoulders draped in a royal blue gown. A delicate tiara rested upon her brow. "Welcome, brave warrior," she said, her voice as melodious as a spring breeze. "I am Princess Alara of the Kingdom of Lumina. We have summoned you to save our world from the demon scourge that threatens to destroy us all." Mark's gaze darted between the princess, the bearded man, and the other robed figures. His heart raced as the reality of his situation began to sink in. This can't be real," he muttered. The bearded man chuckled. "I assure you, young hero, it is very real indeed. I am Archmage Thorn, and we have used ancient magic to bring you here in our hour of need." Princess Alara's eyes met Mark's, and he felt a flutter in his chest. "Please," she implored, "will you help us?" Mark swallowed hard, his mind awash with conflicting emotions, fear, excitement, and a strange sense of purpose he had never felt before. He looked down at his hands, still clutching the now dormant orb that had brought him to this fantastical world. With a deep breath, he squared his shoulders and met the princess's gaze. I don't know how much help I can be," he admitted. "But I'll do whatever I can." A collective sigh of relief swept through the chamber. Princess Alara's face lit up with a radiant smile that made Mark's heart skip a beat. "Thank you," she said, reaching out to clasp his hand. "Come, there is much to explain, and time is of the essence." As Mark allowed himself to be led from the chamber, his mind raced with questions. How had he been chosen? What powers did they expect him to possess? And most pressingly, how on earth was he supposed to defeat a demon? Little did he know, his arrival had set in motion a chain of events that would reshape the fate of an entire world, and his own destiny along with it. Chapter 2, The Hero's Journey Begins. In the days that followed, Mark's head spun with the sheer volume of information thrust upon him. The Kingdom of Lumina, he learned, had long been plagued by demonic forces led by the dreaded demon Lord Moloch. For centuries, the royal family had used their ancestral magic to keep the monsters at bay, but their power was waning. The prophecy spoke of a hero from another world, Archmage Thorn explained as they walked through the castle's sprawling library. One who could wield the sacred sword of light and vanquish the darkness once and for all. Mark ran his fingers along the spine of an ancient tome. "And you think that's me?" Princess Alara, who had taken it upon herself to guide Mark through his new reality, placed a gentle hand on his arm. "We know it's a lot to take in," she said, her voice filled with empathy. "But we have faith in you, Mark." Despite his doubts, Mark found himself drawn to the princess. Her kindness and strength were a beacon of hope in this strange new world. As the days turned to weeks, he threw himself into training, learning swordsmanship from grizzled veterans, studying magic with Archmage Thorn, and discovering the history and customs of Lumina. To everyone's surprise, including his own, Mark showed a natural aptitude for both blade and spell. The sacred sword, a gleaming weapon that had lain dormant for generations, blazed to life at his touch. "It's responding to you," Elara gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. Just as the prophecy foretold. As Mark grew more comfortable in his role as the prophesied hero, he and Elara spent increasing amounts of time together. They would often escape the pressures of the castle, venturing into the nearby forest or the bustling markets of the capital city. During one such outing, as they sat by a tranquil lake watching the twin moons rise, Elara turned to Mark with a serious expression. "There's something you should know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "My father, the king, he's not the man he once was. The strain of holding back the demonic forces has taken its toll on him. He's become paranoid, obsessed with power." Mark frowned, sensing the weight of her words. "What do you mean?" Elara sighed, her gaze dropping to her hands. "I fear he may see you as a threat, rather than our salvation. Promise me you'll be careful, Mark. I couldn't bear it if anything happened to you." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Mark's heart raced as he realized the depth of his feelings for the princess. "I promise," he said softly, reaching out to take her hand. As they sat there, bathed in moonlight, neither of them could have imagined the trials that lay ahead, nor the terrible betrayal that would test their bond to its very limits. In the shadows of the demon realm, Moloch sensed the growing power of the newly arrived hero. The demon lord's grotesque features twisted into a sneer. "So, the humans think they can defy me with their prophesied savior," he growled to his assembled lieutenants. "We shall see about that. Prepare our forces. It's time we reminded these mortals of the true meaning of fear." Back in Lumina, as Mark and Elara made their way back to the castle, a sense of foreboding hung in the air. The young hero's hand instinctively tightened on the hilt of the sacred sword, unaware that his greatest challenges, and his darkest hour, were yet to come. Chapter 3, The First Demon Falls. The air crackled with tension as Mark stood at the head of Lumina's army, the sacred sword gleaming in his grip. Before them stretched a vast, blighted plain, the ground scarred and smoking from demonic corruption. In the distance, a massive portal pulsed with malevolent energy, spewing forth wave after wave of monstrous creatures. "This is it," Elara said, her voice steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. She stood beside Mark, clad in shimmering armor, her own sword at the ready. "Moloch's lieutenant, Vexorus the Vile, leads this assault. If we can defeat him and close that portal, we'll have struck a major blow against the demon forces." Mark nodded, his jaw set with determination. The months of training had prepared him for this moment, yet doubt still gnawed at the edges of his mind. He glanced at Elara, drawing strength from her presence. "Together, then." A ghost of a smile played on her lips. "Always." With a roar that shook the very earth, the demon horde charged. Mark raised the sacred sword high, its light blazing like a newborn star. "For Lumina!" he cried, and the human army surged forward to meet their foes. The battle was chaos incarnate. Steel clashed against claw, spell against hellfire. Mark found himself in a whirlwind of combat, the sacred sword singing as it cleaved through demon after demon. Elara fought at his side, her blade a blur of silver, her magic bolstering their allies and smiting their enemies. As they pushed deeper into the demon ranks, a bone-chilling laugh cut through the din of battle. Before them stood Vexorus the Vile, a towering monstrosity of twisted flesh and jagged bone. "So, this is the hero who would challenge Moloch," the demon sneered, its voice like grinding stone. "Come then, little mortal. Let us see if your light can withstand true darkness." Mark steeled himself, raising the sacred sword. "I'm not afraid of you," he declared, though his heart hammered in his chest. Vexorus lunged, and the world narrowed to the space between hero and demon. Their clash sent shockwaves across the battlefield, each blow threatening to shatter the earth beneath their feet. Mark felt his arms grow heavy, his breaths coming in ragged gasps as he parried and countered the demon's relentless assault. Just as it seemed he might falter, Elara's voice rang out. "Mark! Remember why you fight. Remember who you are. Her words ignited something within him. With a cry that came from the very depths of his soul, Mark channeled every ounce of his power into the sacred sword. The blade erupted with blinding light, and he brought it down in a devastating arc. Vexorus howled in agony as the sacred energy tore through its corrupted form. Impossible, the demon shrieked as its body began to crumble. Master Moloch, forgive me. With a final, earth-shattering explosion, Vexorus the Vile was no more. The demon horde, suddenly leaderless, fell into disarray. Mark wasted no time. Summoning the last of his strength, he plunged the sacred sword into the heart of the portal. Reality itself seemed to warp and buckle. With a sound like the death cry of a dying god, the portal collapsed in on itself, taking the remaining demons with it. Silence fell over the battlefield, broken only by the ragged breathing of the survivors. Then, a single cheer went up, swelling into a thunderous roar of victory. Ilara rushed to Mark's side as he sank to his knees, exhausted but triumphant. "You did it," she whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. "You really did it." As the army of Lumina celebrated around them, Mark allowed himself a moment of pure, unadulterated relief. He had faced his first true test as a hero and emerged victorious. Looking into Ilara's eyes, he felt a surge of hope for the future. But even as cheers echoed across the land, dark forces were stirring. In the royal castle, King Aldrich received news of the victory with a frown, his eyes cold and calculating. And in the depths of the demon realm, Moloch raged at the loss of his lieutenant, vowing that this was only the beginning. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. And for Mark, the greatest betrayal of all still lay ahead. Chapter 4, Betrayal and Escape. The halls of Lumina's royal castle echoed with celebration. Tapestries depicting Mark's victory over Vexorus adorned the walls, and the air was thick with the scent of feast preparations. Yet as Mark made his way through the corridors, a sense of unease gnawed at him. He found Ilara in a secluded garden, her face drawn with worry. "Mark," she said, relief evident in her voice. "I was hoping to find you before the ceremony." "What's wrong?" he asked, sensing her distress. Ilara glanced around before speaking in hushed tones. "It's my father. His behavior has become erratic. He speaks of dark magics, of harnessing demonic power to protect the kingdom. I fear he may do something drastic." Before Mark could respond, a royal guard approached. "His Majesty requests your presence in the throne room, Sir Mark." With a shared look of apprehension, Mark and Ilara made their way to the grand chamber. King Aldrich sat upon his throne, his once kind eyes now hard and calculating. "Ah, our great hero," the king's voice dripped with barely concealed contempt. "Come closer, boy. Let us discuss your reward." As Mark approached, he felt a chill run down his spine. The king's gaze was predatory, filled with a mixture of fear and jealousy. "Father, what are you doing?" Ilara asked, her voice trembling. King Aldrich rose from his throne, a dark energy crackling around his hands. "Did you think I would allow this outsider to hold such power over my kingdom?" he snarled. "He's become too much of a threat. The people look to him now, not their king." Realization dawned on Mark as the king's intentions became clear. "Your Majesty, please," he began, but was cut off as a bolt of dark magic shot towards him. Mark barely managed to dodge, drawing the sacred sword in defense. Its light clashed against the king's corrupted magic, sending sparks flying across the throne room. "Guards!" Aldrich roared. "Kill the traitor!" Chaos erupted in the throne room. Mark, fueled by betrayal and the sword's power, fought his way through the guards. Ilara, torn between loyalty to her father and her love for Mark, created a magical barrier to hold off the soldiers. "Mark! You have to escape," she shouted over the din, "find a way out of the castle." With a heavy heart, Mark nodded. He carved a path through the castle, the sacred sword glowing with righteous fury. Behind him, he could hear the king's enraged howls and Alara's pleas for her father to see reason. In his desperate flight, Mark found himself in a familiar chamber, the very room where he had first been summoned to this world. The summoning circle was etched into the floor, its intricate runes still faintly glowing. As he hesitated, unsure of his next move, the door burst open. King Aldrich stood there, his eyes wild with madness and dark magic coursing through his veins. "Nowhere left to run, boy," the king sneered, gathering a massive orb of destructive energy between his hands. In that split second, Mark made a decision. He raised the sacred sword, intending to use its power to deflect the king's attack. But as the energies clashed, something unexpected happened. The magical backlash surged through the room, seeking a path of least resistance. It found it in the summoning circle, the runes flaring to blinding intensity. A deafening crack split the air as the circle's intricate patterns began to fracture and crumble. Both Mark and the king were thrown off their feet by the explosive release of energy. As the world faded to white around him, Mark's last conscious thought was of Alara and the kingdom he was leaving behind. When he came to, he found himself lying on cold pavement, the familiar hum of the college vending machine in his ears. He was back in his world, the sacred sword still clutched in his hand, the only proof that his adventures in Lumina hadn't been a dream. As the reality of his situation sank in, Mark's heart ached with guilt and loss. He had saved Lumina from the demons, only to be betrayed by the very king he'd sworn to protect. And in his escape, he had accidentally destroyed the summoning circle, perhaps the only way back to Alara and the world he had come to love. Little did he know, his journey was far from over. Back in Lumina, as the dust settled in the ruined chamber, the seeds of rebellion were already beginning to sprout. And in the demon realm, Moloch sensed the chaos in the human world, a wicked grin spreading across his grotesque features. The hero was gone, but the story of Lumina was about to take an even darker turn. Chapter 5, A Kingdom in Peril. In the wake of Mark's sudden disappearance, the kingdom of Lumina found itself teetering on the brink of chaos. The official story, carefully crafted by King Aldrich, painted the hero as a traitor who had fled in the face of a new demonic threat. But whispers of the truth spread through the kingdom like wildfire, fueled by those who had witnessed the king's erratic behavior. Princess Alara, her heart heavy with the loss of Mark and the betrayal of her father, threw herself into the task of protecting the realm. She knew that without the hero and the sacred sword, Lumina was more vulnerable than ever. "We must fortify our defenses," she urged the royal council, her voice firm despite the dark circles under her eyes. "The demons will surely try to take advantage of our situation." But even as Lumina's armies mobilized, a new and terrible force was gathering in the shadows. Deep in the demon realm, Lord Moloch sat upon his throne of twisted bone, his grotesque features twisted into a smile of cruel satisfaction. "The hero is gone," he growled to his assembled lieutenants. "The sacred sword no longer stands between us and victory. The time has come to crush these humans once and for all." With a wave of his clawed hand, Moloch summoned forth a figure shrouded in darkness. As the shadows parted, they revealed a being of nightmarish beauty, half demon, half human, with eyes that glowed like dying stars. "Azrael," Moloch intoned, "my greatest creation. You shall lead our armies in this final assault. Show these mortals the true meaning of despair." Back in Lumina, the first signs of the impending doom came in the form of increased monster attacks along the borders. Villages were razed, outposts overwhelmed. The king's troops fought valiantly, but without the power of the sacred sword to turn the tide, they found themselves slowly but surely pushed back. Alara, donning armor and leading from the front lines, felt a growing sense of dread. "We can't keep this up forever," she confided to her trusted advisor, the aged wizard Thorn. "There has to be a way to turn the tide." Thorn's weathered face was grim as he replied, "I fear, Your Highness, that our only hope may lie in the very magic that brought the hero to our world in the first place. But with the summoning circle destroyed." Their conversation was cut short by the urgent arrival of a messenger. "Your Highness," the young soldier gasped, falling to one knee. A massive army of demons approaches the capital. They're led by something we've never seen before. The outer defenses are already falling. Ilara's heart sank, but her voice remained steady as she issued orders to rally their remaining forces. As she prepared to face what might be Lumina's final battle, her thoughts turned to Mark. Where was he now? Did he know the peril they faced? Little did she know, across the veil between worlds, Mark was fighting a battle of his own, against the gnawing guilt and sense of helplessness that threatened to consume him. The sacred sword, once blazing with holy light, now lay dim and silent at his side, a painful reminder of the world and the people he had left behind. As both Lumina and its lost hero faced their darkest hour, the stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of two worlds. The question remained, could the light of hope shine once more in the face of overwhelming darkness? Chapter 6, A Princess's Gambit. The throne room of Lumina's royal castle, once a place of grandeur and hope, now felt suffocating under the weight of impending doom. Princess Ilara stood before her father, King Aldrich, her eyes blazing with a mixture of determination and sorrow. "Father, you must see reason," she pleaded. "Our forces are overwhelmed. The people suffer. We need silence." King Aldrich roared, his face twisted with paranoia and fear. "I'll hear no more talk of that treacherous hero. Our own magic will save us. I've nearly perfected a spell to harness the demon's power for our own use." Ilara recoiled, horrified. "You can't be serious. That's exactly what the demons want. It will corrupt you, corrupt our entire kingdom." But the king was beyond reason. As he turned away, muttering dark incantations, Ilara knew what she had to do. With a heavy heart, she gave a subtle nod to the royal guards, those still loyal to the true spirit of Lumina. In a swift, coordinated move, the guards surrounded the king. "What is the meaning of this?" Aldrich sputtered, his eyes wide with disbelief. Ilara stepped forward, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. "Father, by the ancient laws of Lumina, I hereby relieve you of your duties as king. You are no longer fit to rule." As the former king was led away, his angry shouts echoing through the halls, Ilara sank onto the throne. The weight of the crown, hastily placed upon her brow, felt impossibly heavy. "Your Highness," Thorn approached, his voice gentle. "What would you have us do now?" Ilara took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "Gather the people. It's time they knew the truth, about my father's betrayal, about Mark, about everything." Hours later, Ilara stood before a sea of frightened, confused faces in the castle courtyard. With unwavering resolve, she recounted the tale of Mark's arrival, his heroic deeds, and the tragic betrayal that had led to his disappearance. "But all hope is not lost," she declared, her voice carrying to every corner of the gathering. "I make this vow to you, people of Lumina, and to our hero wherever he may be, if Mark returns to us with the sacred sword and drives back the demon horde, I shall step down from the throne. He will rule as your king, with me as his queen, if he so chooses." A murmur rippled through the crowd, shock, hope, and the first stirrings of renewed determination. Ilara raised her voice once more, infusing it with all the magic and will she possessed. "Mark, hero of Lumina, if you can hear me across the void between worlds, know this, we need you. I need you. Come back to us, and together, we will save our kingdom." As her words faded, a strange wind swept through the courtyard. For a moment, just a moment, the air seemed to shimmer with otherworldly energy. Miles away, at the front lines of the battle against the demon army, a soldier swore he saw a brief flash of light in the sky, reminiscent of the glow that had once emanated from the sacred sword. And in another world, in a small college dorm room, Mark bolted upright in his bed, Ilara's voice echoing in his mind like a distant dream. The sacred sword, propped in the corner of his room, began to hum with a familiar, comforting warmth. Its glow, which had been dim since his return to Earth, now pulsed with renewed vigor. The hero's eyes snapped open, filled with newfound purpose. He grasped the sacred sword, feeling its power course through him once more. "Elara," he whispered, "I'm coming." As Mark stood, determination etched on his face, he knew that finding a way back to Lumina wouldn't be easy. But with the sacred sword responding to Elara's call, he had hope. Somehow, he would find a way to return to the world that needed him, to the people he had grown to love, and to the princess who believed in him even now. The sword's light grew stronger, as if resonating with his resolve. Whatever trials lay ahead, Mark knew one thing for certain: the hero's journey was far from over. Chapter 7: The Hero's Return. Mark stood in his dorm room, the sacred sword pulsing with an otherworldly light in his grip. Elara's voice still echoed in his mind, a desperate plea from a world away. But how could he return to Lumina? The summoning circle was destroyed, the connection severed. As if in answer to his thoughts, the sword's glow intensified. Mark felt a pull, an inexorable tug at the very core of his being. Understanding dawned, the sacred sword itself was the key. "Hold on, Elara," he whispered. "I'm on my way." With a deep breath, Mark raised the sword high and focused all his will on Lumina, on Elara, on the world that needed him. The room around him began to blur and warp, reality itself bending to the sword's power. In a flash of blinding light, Mark vanished from Earth. On the outskirts of Lumina's capital, a fierce battle raged. Elara, clad in shimmering armor, fought alongside her troops against an endless tide of demons. Azrael, Moloch's terrifying half-demon commander, led the assault, his very presence spreading fear and despair. "Your resistance is futile, princess," Azrael taunted, his voice like silk over steel. "Surrender now, and perhaps Lord Moloch will be merciful." Elara's response was a defiant blast of magic, but even she knew their situation was dire. The city's outer defenses had fallen, and they were being pushed back street by street. Suddenly, the air crackled with energy. A brilliant light erupted in the center of the battlefield, causing both humans and demons to shield their eyes. As the radiance faded, a familiar figure stood revealed, the sacred sword blazing in his hand. "Mark!" Elara cried, joy and relief washing over her. The hero's eyes met hers, a silent promise passing between them. Then he turned to face the demon horde, his voice ringing out across the battlefield. "I've returned, Lumina. And this time, I'm here to stay." The effect was instantaneous. A cheer went up from the human forces, their spirits renewed by the hero's return. The demons, sensing the shift in the battle's energy, hesitated. Azrael snarled, his composure cracking. "Kill him. Kill them all." What followed was a battle of legend. Mark and Elara fought side by side, their powers complementing each other perfectly. The sacred sword cleaved through demon after demon, its holy light anathema to the creatures of darkness. As they pushed the demonic forces back, Mark recounted his journey to Elara between sword swings and magical blasts. "I heard your call," he said. "The sword brought me back. I'm sorry I ever left." Elara's smile was radiant even in the midst of battle. "You're here now. That's all that matters." The tide of the battle turned. With Mark's return inspiring the troops and the sacred sword's power tipping the scales, the demon army began to falter. Azrael, realizing the day was lost, retreated to the demon realm to report to his master. As the last of the demons were driven from the city, the people of Lumina poured into the streets, their cheers of victory filling the air. Mark and Elara stood together, battered but triumphant. "You did it," Elara said softly. "You saved us all." Mark shook his head, taking her hand in his. "We did it. Together." As the sun began to set on the liberated city, casting a golden glow over the scene of their victory, Mark knew that his greatest challenge, and his greatest joy, still lay ahead. A kingdom to heal, a people to lead, and a love to nurture. The hero had returned, and Lumina would never be the same again. Chapter 8: A New Dawn for Lumina. In the days following the great battle, Lumina began the slow process of healing. The demon threat had been pushed back, but the scars of war remained etched across the land and its people. Yet, amidst the rubble and rebuilding, a sense of hope blossomed, nurtured by the presence of their returned hero and their beloved princess. Mark and Alara worked tirelessly, moving through the city and countryside, offering aid and comfort where they could. The sacred sword, no longer needed for battle, found a new purpose in helping to cleanse areas tainted by demonic corruption. As promised, Alara prepared to step down from the throne. On a bright morning, exactly 1 month after the final battle, she addressed the people gathered in the castle's grand courtyard. "People of Lumina," she began, her voice clear and strong. "We have weathered a terrible storm together. We have faced betrayal, invasion, and the very forces of darkness itself. But we have emerged stronger, united in our resolve and our hope for the future." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Alara continued, "As I vowed in our darkest hour, I now fulfill my promise. I hereby abdicate the throne in favor of our hero, Mark, whose courage and sacrifice have saved us all." She turned to Mark, who stood beside her, the sacred sword sheathed at his side. "Will you, Mark, hero of Lumina, accept the crown and the responsibility that comes with it? Will you lead our people into this new era of peace and prosperity?" Mark stepped forward, his eyes meeting Alara's with a mix of love and determination. "I will," he said, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "But not alone." He took Alara's hand in his. "If you'll have me, I ask that you rule by my side, not as a princess, but as my queen and equal." Tears of joy welled in Alara's eyes as she nodded, unable to speak. The crowd erupted in cheers, their jubilation echoing off the castle walls. As the newly proclaimed king and queen of Lumina faced their people, hand in hand, the true work began. There were wounds to heal, both in the land and in the hearts of its people. The threat of Moloch and his demon realm still loomed on the horizon, a challenge for another day. And there was the delicate task of reforging the bonds between Lumina and Mark's homeworld, now that they knew such connections were possible. But for now, in this moment of triumph and new beginnings, hope reigned supreme. The sacred sword gleamed in the sunlight, a symbol not just of power, but of the unbreakable spirit of Lumina and its people. As Mark and Alara shared a kiss, sealing their union and their commitment to their kingdom, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The hero from another world and the princess who never lost faith, their story had become legend, a tale of betrayal, redemption, and a love strong enough to bridge worlds. And so, as Lumina stepped into a new age of peace and prosperity, the people took comfort in knowing that their kingdom was in the hands of leaders who embodied the very best of both worlds: courage, compassion, and an unwavering dedication to the light. The end of one chapter, but the beginning of a grand new adventure.